War. War is not pretty, but you've been in a war. And you've been in a noticeable war that you didn't notice since 2008. Let me tell you something. There hasn't been a peaceful transition of power in the presidency since 2008. There hasn't been one since then because Barack Obama never moved out of Washington, D.C. to ready to do it. And he still lives there. So this peaceful transition of power is a bunch of baloney. It hadn't happened since then. Now I want to tell you this. So war is like that, and you're in a war, and you're going to have to get tough. Now you're going to have to get tough, and you're going to have to let religious ideas just go away from you because your religion gets you hurt. You just think God is going to do something because He used to do it in a box 58 years ago. But God He said, I'll do a new thing. I'll give you a brand new box, do a brand new thing. He writes new music. Suddenly on the stage, He'll explode into something and write about a train coming down, bringing the glory, and that you can get on board and ride it on. And all of a sudden, the music begins to sound like a train. And then it starts sounding like a whistle blowing. And nobody knows it and nobody plans it. There's a new thing going on. And it's a thing called victory. That's what it's called. It's called victory. This is our finest hour, and we are about to win. Aren't you ready to win? Don't pay any attention to people talking about you. Don't pay any attention to people bad-mouthing you. Don't pay any attention to people coming down on you. If I paid attention to the Birdliner newspaper trash people throw at me all the time, that ends up like bird poop at the bottom of the cage. I'm telling you, if I paid any attention to that, I'd be stinking everywhere I went. You can't pay any attention to that mess. It's the Midianites that had Gideon. Strife. Midianites, strife. Now, the enemy's pulling out his big guns right now. Strife. He's got Jezebels running from north, south, east, and west. He's got Ahab's enabling all of them. They're building their own private armies. Everything's coming out against us in war. Years ago, I was standing at Captain D's, the great little seafood place, in Gardendale, Alabama, because people from other states are watching right now, so in other countries. And so I was standing there. This was years ago now. I hadn't been saved all that long. And I'm standing there on a payphone. Remember that when phones had tails? And I was talking on a payphone. And I was standing under the sign. And when I turned around and looked like this, actually, it was this direction, but I'm facing you. No, I was this way. And I turned and looked. And when I looked, from that Captain D's, there's a huge Methodist church down there, down the highway. Those in this room probably know where that's at. Above that church, the sky disappeared. And it was a huge clock. Big clock, had Roman numerals on it. It was huge, gold-faced. I'll never forget, it was bigger than that church, hanging in the sky. And I turned around and looked at it. And it said 15 minutes till 12 o'clock. And I looked at it like this, and when I looked down from it at the side of that Captain D's, I saw soldiers walking. They didn't look like our American soldiers. They looked, I'm going to tell you who they looked like. They looked like that Disney program, The Mandalorian. That's who they looked like. Cape and all. And they were walking down the side of the building like that. They were walking that direction like this. On this side, a space from them, was people almost dressed the same, but it was darker colored. And they were walking this way. And there was a whole bunch of people like you and me walking in the middle of them. And they were oblivious to them being there. They didn't even know they were there. And somebody I was talking to, I saw all this now while I'm talking. And somebody I was talking to said something and broke me out of it. I heard them on the phone. And I turned and said, And when it dawned on me, I looked back, of course, it's all gone. I said, Lord, what was that? He said, those soldiers, he said, those in the light armor are people that serve me and know they serve me and fight in this war. Those with the dark armor are those who do not serve me but serve the enemy, and they know they serve the enemy. And he told me this. He said, they are not deceived. They're doing it on purpose. And he said, the people in the middle are the everyday people who don't have a clue there's a war going on all around them. And before I could say anything, he said, and that clock is all the time you have left. That was in about 1989. And the Lord said, I'll remind you of that clock ever so often. I told Robin about it. And what got my attention, well, what made me turn was a cold wind blew across the back of my neck. I had on a black leather jacket. Isn't that something? Even then. I usually wear a black leather jacket. And a wind blew across I believe it was prophetic for the time. And when I turned to look and I saw all that happen. Well, after that, we came up, we got our first youth center up here in Warrior. Well, straight up there at that traffic light, I was crossing the road from that sidewalk across the little street to that sidewalk. And as I was going across it, that cold wind blew across my neck. This was a good while after. I turned quick to look and there was nothing there. And the Lord said, I'm reminding you of the clock. So we went on about our business and we kept ministering and we kept building and trying to war and trying to work and trying to do for God. And you always have people come against you trying to drag you off into a big cesspool of strife. They would come down every weekend we had the youth center open and come down and tell me what this preacher up here had said about me. And how they were talking about us. And this and that. And I just smile and go on about my business. One day they came down after a long period of doing this. And I said, it was something different they had said every time. I said, how much? I said, do you ever hear me talk about them? No. Because I don't. And I said, but they're always talking about me. Yes. I said, but I never say anything bad about them. No. I said, okay. And walked off. Because that should make a dent. Well, the enemy was trying to stir up strife. So we're going on, and then we moved different buildings and different things, and we moved in some places we shouldn't have moved, and should have kept some of the buildings we had and not got new buildings. But the Lord was working because my heart was pure. A couple of the youth came in one day and said, William Hallmark signing prints of a portrait that he painted downtown. We saw this painting and got it for you. They don't know. They just got it for me. Me and Robin. Had both our names on it. Had him sign it to Robin and Robin. So, it's rolled up in this cylinder. No, it wasn't in a cylinder. It was in a big envelope, wasn't it? And I took it out. I said, well, because I like artwork. I mean, I really like art. Real art. And, I can look at art I don't understand. That looks like you just threw paint at something, but I appreciate it, but I don't, but I like art. And so I pulled this thing out, and it was this clock. I said, my goodness. And I looked at that clock, and it said 7 minutes till 12. I slid that back in that thing. I laid it up in my office on top of something for years. I guess it was a couple years or maybe longer. And I'm preaching in a barn up in out of Talladega, Alabama, in a barn. And it's cold. They didn't have no heat. And so I'm standing up there, and I got to talking about this clock. And I said, tomorrow night I'll bring it and show it to you. Okay, yeah, because I was in revival. So the next night I just grabbed the envelope and took it with me. Didn't look in it, nothing. And I said, told them the brief, it was 15, now it's 7 minutes till 12. And when I pulled the painting out of the thing, it said 2 minutes till 12 o'clock. And they can testify to this. I just stopped. I was stunned. Because it said 7 when I got it. You say, well, no, it was always 2 minutes till. Well, it may have been. But I'm telling you, I saw 7. And the Lord told me, He said, now that's all the time you have. That's exactly right. Then I'm coming back from, this is years later. This is after we have this building, I think. Wasn't he in this building the last time? We're coming up the road, coming from that direction where that clock was over that church. The other day I went through that Captain D's and got me a drive-through and pulled out there under the sun to eat it. And I sat there and stared at where I was standing that day. And I could see it all. I remembered it all. And so we're coming back from that direction from Fultondale, coming back north. 31. This little pickup passed me. It come past me. And when it come past me like that, it had a grandfather's clock in it. It was tied down. And the door was open and it was banging on the clock. And I looked at Robin and I said, they're going to tear the door off their clock. I said, let me see if I can catch them and tell them that door's open on that clock. They're just going to tear it up. Well, I speeded up. I couldn't catch them. Then they pulled over to get fuel, and I said, well, they'll see it. And I'm going on, and I think they passed me again. Now, I may be wrong. Did they pass us twice? And I said, man, look, there's that clock again. And the Lord said, would you look at the clock? And I looked at the clock, and it was the identical face of the one in the sky, the one on the painting, everything. Except this time it said 12 o'clock, straight up. And He's told me back then, I'll remind you over time about this clock. I see you got something in your hand. Okay. Is that my clock? Oh.
And they told me to share this. I was sitting there, and as he was talking, I kept being reminded that this painting's hanging on the wall in his office. And I even looked at, and then every time you'd say you saw it, I turned to look at Mom. I said, it's hanging on the wall in his office. And I was wondering, they are a witness. That office door, the doorknob turned, and it opened. And the Lord said, go get the clock. When we looked, the time has turned back. It's 7 minutes till midnight. Or a few minutes until midnight.
No, it's 7 if it's the angel wing.
So that's 2.
Oh my goodness.
So it's back.
No, the wing is now the time to command. I've never noticed the wing is 7 minutes.
Yeah.
Here's the minute hand at 2. And this was the clock.
Is there a way we can...
Yeah, look, they're on it. And you can see where he signed it to Robin and I down here. And I've never seen that. One night I was here preaching, and we used to have this table that sat right here. It's in my office too. And it had an hourglass sitting on it. And I'm standing here. And all at once, I saw somebody get up and they started coming down was it Christus got up and started moving down the aisle? Walking, and I didn't know what they were doing. They were in here. You don't ask. You just watch and see what plays out. And so, but as they were coming toward this hourglass, the lady was running the camera over here. Her mouth was hung open. The hourglass burst at the bottom, and a hole broke out in it for no reason. And the sand ran out and pooled around the bottom of that hole, and it filled up to the place to where no more sand could run out, and time stopped. It just stopped. Now you tell me, while I'm preaching about the painting, the door opened. Was it on my office or this office? This one here. They thought somebody was coming out of this office. My office joins Robin's office. And they thought somebody was coming out of this door. And the doorknob turned and they thought it was coming out. And the door opened and said, go get the clock. And my door was open. And then we get it, and an angel wing has now replaced the minute hand. Time to command. Now, folks, you've been in a supernatural meeting already today. The hourglass? All right, just put it in front of that camera right there. Remember, it did a good job last time. And so you've already been in a supernatural meeting. That train came. The glory came. All of this. I don't know how close you have to hold it, but see it? Hold it up a little bit. There you go. You see that? It very much is. And did you know that it... Now I want you to listen to this. Something you can't see on that table is right below the hourglass is an American flag in a case that flew over Baghdad. Wasn't it Baghdad when we took the place? When the American soldiers took it, a man was given one of the flags that flew over it, and he brought it and gave it to us as a gift because we love the military so much and support them. And he brought it. And notice in this time, America is under attack. And the victory, all that. And then the hourglass burst. The door opens this morning. This is the time we've given time to take back our nation or lose our nation. And the shofar behind the hourglass is the clarion call. The watchman on the wall sounding and calling assembly. Now, how many of you think that all of this is, you just think this is all coincidence this morning? So, here we are at this time, and I thought, I've never seen I thought it was still 12 o'clock. And now when I look, I know what I may have been seeing back then. That angel wing says 7 minutes till. In other words, we're supposed to recognize that the angelic force and the supernatural has been unleashed for us to enable to control that time. And 7 minutes till is completion, and 7 and 7, and it's all going to be within that time. And we keep moving it back and forth all the time we need. But we must learn to command this time, and we have to speak. Yes, 7 is a Shemitah number. It's a Shemitah year. Now, hallelujah. Now, yes, it would have to do with harvest, wouldn't it? It's being a Shemitah. Now, watch this. So, the Lord says this. He looked upon Gideon and said, go in this your might, that you're a mighty man of valor. And watch what he says next. He gives him this command, go in this your might. And then the Lord makes this statement, and thou shalt save Israel from the hand of the Midianites. Then he makes another statement, have not I sent thee? that was supposed to be enough. Go in what I told you you are. You will accomplish what I've sent you to do. Haven't I sent you? Now listen to this. 2 statements of fact, if acted upon, every statement of the Lord, He kept coming back with what had to do with Gideon's call. Every time Gideon answered him back, the Lord would answer him concerning his call. All the power, all the success was in his call. Gideon had another question and 2 excuses why he could not do it. He said, wherewith shall I save Israel? How am I going to save this country? He said, behold, my family's poor. I can't save the nation. My family's too poor. And he said, and I'm the least one in all my father's house. The Lord answers Gideon and tells him what he will be able to accomplish. He said, surely I will be with thee, and you'll smite the Midianites as one man. Hallelujah. Now, we talked about the Elijah moment. We talked about these different things. Now I want to talk to you about something else, and then we'll wind this down maybe here. I've got some things I want to show you and tell you. And I'm going to tell you, and it makes no difference anymore. And he won, even though it looked like he couldn't. First time or second time, but he did. Well, the Lord told him, said, I want you to anoint Barack Obama to be president. So he anointed him. In 2010, the Lord came to him and said this, called the prophet by his name and said, Obama lied to me. The Lord said he lied to him. Said he promised me he would do these certain things if I would let him be president. He was supposed to end a lot of things with race. He was supposed to do a lot of things. But he turned that quick and threw Israel under the bus and sold this nation out. When he did, the Lord told this prophet, he said, he lied to me. He said, tell him he's through. And I know the president listened to him because he quoted him on one of his speeches. And so he came on the air in 2010, I think it was in June, somewhere around June. And he said, you were a president, you were anointed, and now you're through. Said you're finished. You are Saul. And God is going to raise up a David. That was Kim Clement. And he said, now God is going to raise up a David, a man after his heart that will replace you. 7 months, I think it was after that. What is it? June, July, August, September, October. No, maybe it was 5 months. 5 months after that. Was it October? Was it October? I don't remember now. October, November. Suddenly Barack Obama's standing in front of a whole women's conference. And they're all smiles and like flashlights are shoved in their heads, and they're all happy and everything. And he's speaking to them from behind the podium. The big presidential seal is on the front of it, and all at once it fell loose from his podium, bounced 7 bounces on the floor, and fell over. And he stood there with no authority. And it shook him up. Oh, it shook him up. And he looked around and he looked at it and he said, he said, well, you know who I am. He never could, he had no more authority, couldn't get nothing done, even though he controlled everything. They controlled the Senate, I think. They controlled everything, and still he couldn't get it done. It was on 10/5 that happened, yeah. So it was in October. October the 5th. Now that's very important that you understand that. On the 5th of October, 2010, that fell off his podium. Kim Clement gave the prophecy, and it was either June, I think it was June he gave it, and told him he was through now. And he said, remember what Saul was told? I'm going to raise up a David, a man after my own heart. And this David, then he starts talking about, and Kim Clement's in heaven now. But I'm telling you, he started talking about it way before he never saw him president. But he did become president, didn't he? But he's a David. One of his roles is David. So when I heard that, I started meditating on that and listening to that because, you know, he's one of my spiritual fathers in the faith. And so I started meditating on that, listening to that. And I looked at Mark here and I said, does the president have somebody in his life named Stone? And this was way back then now. Nobody had heard of him much then. And Mark said, he did have somebody that worked for him named Roger Stone. I said, we need to watch that or something I said about that. Then suddenly Roger Stone comes in the forefront. Now David has a stone in his hand. And so the Lord told me one day, and I posted this. I think I posted it on Facebook. I don't know if I posted it on the YouTube channel. But I said, and it was on Facebook because it was a text. I remember typing it, texting it. Not texting it, posting it. And I said, when David releases the stone, the giant will fall. Well, they put Roger Stone in jail. And then all at once, to everybody's surprise, David released the stone and pardoned him. When that happened, that giant was hit square in the head. The deep state. He not only fought the deep state, but he fought a man named James Comey. Have you ever looked at that man up beside regular men? They walk along beside him standing here. But David took him down and is about to take him out. So he's fulfilling the role of David. Well, then he had to pick up the role of Jehu, because John McCain was Jehu. And he didn't finish it. And so when John McCain didn't run over, when Jezebel's own people threw her off the wall, and he should have ran over her. It's Hillary Clinton. Her own people threw her down, put up Barack Obama in her place, and when she hit the ground, John McCain gave out in strength. He didn't try. He couldn't run over her. So there she was at the bottom of the wall, just like the old prophecy. And since nobody ran over her and dismembered her, then she got back up. And time was altered. But something you need to know about Jehu. When Jehu ran over her, and something else Jehu did, he acted like he was a friend of all the Islamic extremists. No, I'll leave that alone right there. You say Islamic extreme? Yeah. Because they were all from the east. But let me back up and say this. Jehu acted like he was a friend of Baal. Baal worship is the thing that God is doing battle with right now. Baal worship is the deep state. Baal worship is the religion of government. Baal worship is what's going on. All the child trafficking you see, all this hideous stuff going on is done by high-profile people, and they're worshiping Baal while they're doing it. There's something I could tell you, but I can't tell you because the Lord won't let me tell you. Because warriors need to know when to keep their mouths shut and when they need to speak. But it went through. Jehu acted like he was a friend of the Baal worshipers. And he threw a big party. He said, Ahab worshiped Baal a little, Jehu will worship him a lot.